The absolute and the relative. All relative concepts existing in the manifested universe, like good evil, right wrong, beauty ugliness, etc., are true nature itself, the truth. It is, therefore, foolishness and ignorance that cause dualistic discrimination. People do not see the relative universe manifested as one of the whole, part of true nature, and so fall into using the relative concepts to exercise dualistic discrimination with the individual consciousness in the body. By dependent origination with no self, no being exists by itself and alone in this relative manifested universe. So there is no subject to be named as I. All beings must be born and die as they are beings of illusion and dependent origination with no self. Why are they illusions? Because they have to change and disappear. These illusions exist, stay, and disappear under the principle of dependent origination. That is caused by this, and this is caused by that. One makes another exist and then disappears. A relative being cannot exist alone, but can exist only with an object. Therefore, we cannot say such a thing as I. What we can say as I is true nature, the absolute, one that does not ever change, has no beginning and no ending, is not this and not that, but also is this and that. This is the only true I. A being manifested from true nature is an appearance of illusion and only seems to be divided by relative cognition when manifested. But it is not really separated, it only seems to be separated when an individual consciousness is diluted. Something that is only oneness is unable to be cognized and unable to exist phenomenally. But it appears as consciousness when manifested phenomenally. However, an unrealized person thinks of only his body as I and others as you, so his individual consciousness is divided. This divided consciousness comes from the individual consciousness that cognizes the individual as I. But in effect, such consciousness comes from only relative concepts. There is no such thing in true nature, reality. Truth is the one, existing intrinsically in pairs. The absolute and the relative are one. I have already explained the basics about the absolute and the relative. Firstly, it is necessary to explain the absolute and the relative separately, in order to make the two concepts understood, even though they are originally one. Therefore, as long as people cannot see the totality, they are trapped within the limit of concepts. Though many truth seekers, including Buddhists, say that the absolute and the relative are one, actually they cognize that the two are separate. They misunderstand that the absolute means an unmanifested empty state. Let's explore what the absolute and the relative are in reality and how they can become one. The absolute and the relative are not two but one. Eastern philosophy explains them as concepts of Muguk, boundlessness, and Tegyuk, yin-yang. There is Muguk, the source, from which there comes Tegyuk, from which come yin and yang. These seem to appear in sequence, but in fact are all within one. We describe it this way to explain it more easily. Muguk is the state of the absolute in which there is no dualistic discrimination. Tegyuk is the state of being yin and yang together. And the manifested world is a state of being separate as yin and yang through the manifestation of duality. But you should not understand systematically that the relative comes from the absolute and that yin-yang, of which there are innumerable forms in the manifested world, comes from the principle of the relative. This shows only the difference of cognition, not a sequence. To understand that the absolute, the relative, and the manifested universe are one. Let's change the picture. Here is a universe. In the universe, the absolute, there are two different natures, Sak manifested and Gong unmanifested. The absolute, which originally is one without dualistic discrimination, appears as relativeness, experiencing two different natures in order to cognize itself. We can call these natures Sak and Gong. Sak means the state of materiality, and Gong the state of emptiness as the opposite concept. For example, suppose there's a room. When there is nothing in a room, we can understand this state as Gong. If material things appear like furniture or people, we see this as Sak. Likewise, the true nature, the room, doesn't appear or disappear and is neither full nor empty. What is it that appears and disappears? It is material things. In reality, only materials appear and disappear, not the room, which doesn't move whether or not there is material within it. It is therefore the same of the absolute. There is both isness and nothingness, Sak and Gong all within. When there is a state of Sak, it is within the absolute, and when there is a state of Gong, it is still within the absolute. The absolute doesn't change, but the relative concept within it changes. From Gong to Sak, from nothingness to isness, the relative concept changes. But now many people mistakenly understand the absolute as Gong. They are deluded that it is the Gong prior to the appearance of Sak, due to viewing it as emptiness, nothingness. This understands only half of the absolute. All exists within the absolute, whether it appears or disappears, whether there is a state of Gong or Sak. Nothing is outside the absolute. Buddhism sees the absolute as emptiness. It is easy to think of a state of nothingness due to the expressive nuance of this word. But as already explained, material things will be manifested with the help of emptiness. So, due to the appearance of material things, does the emptiness disappear? Or when material things disappear, does the emptiness appear? It is not the emptiness, but the materials within that emptiness that appear and disappear. If you believe that emptiness disappears due to the appearance of material things, and that due to the disappearing of material things the emptiness appears, this is a delusion. It is ignorance caused by seeing the emptiness as Gong, the opposite of Sak, the state of non-existence of material things. When we don't understand the truth correctly, we are often deluded. In fact, it is very simple. But the absolute will be divided into Sak and Gong, the relative concept to manifest itself, and Gong will not be divided any further, Sak, however, will be divided again into Yin and Yang due to the state of manifestation. So in a blink, it is possible to mistakenly understand the relation between the absolute and the relative as that between Sak and Gong. The absolute is not a state of Gong, but the state of wholeness, as one within which Gong and Sak exist together.